It's these are pretty accurate little pistols. They're just a little bit snappy maybe in the recoil. And part of that's the design because the barrel is fixed to the frame. Sure, the slide does absorb some of the recoil, but and these are also very, very similar to the Makarov design as well. It's the same style of frame. The barrel goes in this sleeve on the frame. There's a pin that holds the barrel in, and the main difference with this though is it's got the trigger guard that snaps down. So I'll put a little bit more grease on some of the friction points here, put some on the barrel, and just kind of rub it in a little bit where we've got some friction marks. On the slide, the frame rails, and areas like that. Get this slide cleaned out. Get as much of that stuff out of there as I can. Dental picks also are a handy cleaning tool. I've got some that I use often. But this gets a lot of the residue out from shooting, all the excess gases. But this pistol is really good for carry. It's easy to conceal. It's pretty light, even though it is an all-steel frame. It still is reasonably light considering. It's got a nice double action trigger on it. And it's got a neat little hammer safety, so you know this thing's not going to fire unless the trigger is pulled. I'll just rub the grease in on this barrel. This Tetra gun grease is good because it gets into the pores a little bit on the metal, so even if you can't see it, it's still there and it's still functioning. It's still working to help lubricate the fire. However, we can see the hammer here. It's not moving. It's not going to contact the firing pin. You can see the firing pin right there. It doesn't have a click safety on it. It's got a block. You may be able to see down in there that if the hammer is caught on something, you can see the trigger moves, but it's not going to come forward and strike the hammer, or strike the firing pin. The only way it'll do that, and I'll demonstrate, if you pull the trigger, and we can see the hammer, it stops right there, but when the trigger is held, I'm holding the trigger, it actually, the inertia will strike the firing pin. So it's perfectly safe to carry with the hammer down, just like this. The hammer's not moving. It's not contacting that firing pin with a round in the chamber. And that's how I like to carry this pistol. It does have the safety on here, the slide safety. It won't allow the trigger to be pulled, but in my opinion, it's much safer to carry it like this. Have your first shot be double action, and then subsequent shots are in the single action. So, I absolutely love it. And yes, these pistols originally were black. They had a black finish on them, whatever the original finish was. I don't know what it was, but it was so ugly on this one, I stripped it off. I've had quite a few questions about how I got the finish off of this pistol. It took a little while. I had these small, round, little, spongy-looking, abrasive Dremel attachments, and they did most of the work getting the finish off. Sandpaper as well, and a lot of wire wheel time. Then I took it to the buffer. It shined up a little bit. I thought about re-bluing it at the time, but I liked it so much, just I guess you could say in the white like this, that I just left it. And as we can see, we just had this thing apart. There's no rust on it anywhere. I've never had an issue with any type of rust on this pistol, being the original finish has been removed. So it's fun. I like it. I like it a lot. Let me get this SIG barrel cleaned out real quick. It looks pretty good. Got my 45 caliber bore snake here as well. Run it through a few times. This will work. I broke my 30 cal snake. The little brass thing pulled out of it, pulled off the end of the string. So unfortunately, it's not working anymore. It was certainly well used. So I think it's just time to get a new one. Because this thing, if this thing were to pull out, there's a little plastic sleeve inside here that this is crimped on that helps hold it. So it just got pulled a few too many times, I guess. So this barrel, it cleaned up quite well, and it does kind of look like the rifling is a little bit worn in it, but it's still got sharp edges. And it did shoot. It was accurate when I shot it, so I'm not too worried about accuracy with it. I just hope these new springs, hopefully they'll be here sometime next week. We'll see their website where I ordered the additional recoil springs from. Said they were a little bit backed up in their orders, so whatever, they'll come eventually, and I'll just have to handle it then, do a video then or whatever. But I did put a little bit of oil on here. We can see it's nice and shiny. So I did buy some more factory ammo. I think it's Federal 45 stuff. So hopefully that will help things out, smooth things out a little bit. I do like how simple these pistols are. It's got the decocking safety, of course. You can carry it like this with a round in the chamber. Your first shot's going to be double action, and of course your subsequent shots will be single action. One other issue I had when I first fired this, when the slide was still green on it, I put 5 rounds in, shot the first one, it shot and ejected. The second one, the firing pin didn't strike hard enough. I recocked it and fired again, and it fired the rest of them with no issues. So I don't know where all of the extraction issues came from with when I shot it the other day, but on to the next one. It's one of my ultimate favorites, of course, the Kimber Pro TLE2. Now this one, they give you a little tool. It's just this little, you can use anything if you don't have this little tool that they give you, which is basically just a bent wire. The bent wire goes into our little hole right down there. Perhaps it can be seen right in here. I will insert our little piece into that hole, release the slide. This will hold the recoil spring on the guide rod. We move our slide forward. This is just typical of any 1911 that you disassemble, and then we will remove our slide lock pin there, and this slide will then come off. And this one's got a little bit of dirt on it. It's been a while since I've shot it and cleaned it, so. And then we will take our recoil spring out, and I just put a little bit of oil on them. So I'll give it a quick little clean, put a little bit more oil on it, on the guide rod, so the bushing slides nicely. And that's about it. Guess we'll just dive into it. You can see, definitely see the wear marks on this slide as well. The barrel in this one actually is pretty dirty, but no problem, it'll get clean. We'll use some of this CLP again. Get this nice and saturated so we can get a lot of stuff in the bore. And usually these 45 barrels, 1911 barrels I should say, I've noticed are sometimes hard to get clean, spotless anyways. So what I'll do usually, right inside, in front of and right where the bullet enters the barrel once it's fired, there's usually a caked on amount of residue inside. So what I'll do is I'll leave the brush with the patch on there and kind of let it soak in a little bit more. And it's just a little bit of meticulous cleaning, which I don't mind. I like keeping my firearms clean, of course. And definitely